Hey, I'm testing this just to see if this actually works because I've recorded this twice now and I'm starting to get mad. Oh, great. Great. And now my neighbors are being loud again. Great. Great. I can't catch a break. Hello everyone, my name is AJ, and I don't have a good intro. So, a little while ago, I made a video where I created the first floor of the bed and breakfast for former baddies. Unfortunately, I forgot to record the actual process, so it was just me giving you a tour of the first floor. This time though, I remembered to record. Today, I'm going to start working on the grounds around the bed and breakfast. Before I can start building anything, I needed a plan. I started my plan by sketching out the floor plan of the house. The entryway, Charlotte's office, the living room, the outdoor basement opening, Husk's bar, the hallway, the bathroom, the kitchen, and the dining room, and of course the library and the deck. I started on the grounds by planning out the outer wall. Charlotte used to be an overlord and is still disgustingly wealthy. This house was one that she had built when she was still in her prime, and it has been specifically designed to house her and her family. So I have to keep in mind while designing this that this was built by a villain, and a lot of the things that she would have chosen would be things that a wealthy and prideful person would have had. She has to have an outer wall to separate her from the poors. I had originally planned to put her house smack dab in the city she used to own, but I think it would be more in character for her to have it built in with a lot of separation. I didn't want it to be just a square wall, so I changed it out for a circle. And of course she'd be somewhere in the mountains, because the Pride Ring is all mountains with 9 circular valleys where the cities are. It was when I put her house in a circle that I had the idea to make her house in the crater of a long-dormant volcano. And she's a dragon! What's more dragon-like than living in a volcano? I decided to add a pool, a forested walkway, a gazebo with a frog pond, and a field out back for sports and other activities, as well as a shed and a vegetable garden. I later decided off-camera to switch the vegetable garden out with a stable for horses and put the vegetable garden on the roof. After I had my plan figured out, I carved out a very rough circle to mark where the crater's edges would be, and finally got to work on the actual grounds. The part that seemed easiest to tackle was the forested path, so I started with that. I will be doing my modeling in Minecraft. I had originally planned to use Blender, but Blender is really hard to use. Minecraft already has all the pre-built assets that I need. With Blender, I would have either had to spend hours scouring the internet for safe assets to download for free, or I would have had to model all of them myself. I'm sure someday I will do exactly that, maybe not for this project, but eventually in the future. But for now, I really don't want to do that. So the title is it's a little bit clickbait, but I don't really care, and frankly, if you're this far into the video, neither do you. I started by testing to make sure trees could be planted on mycelium. I didn't want to change out all of the dirt only to find out that I couldn't actually plant sprouts on it, because that is exactly something that I would do if I didn't think far enough in advance. That would have been the most annoying thing ever. But you can, so it's all good. I then went about the process of replacing all of the grass with mycelium and adding in the pathway. This took a very long time. I had the brief thought to build the trees myself so I could perfectly control what they looked like, but it looked bad. So I decided not to do that. And that also would have taken way longer. Instead, I decided to use the tree that was introduced in the new update, the pale tree. I love this tree. It's such a cool tree. Pale gray is my absolute favorite color, and it went really well with the mycelium. I didn't want to have just one type of tree though, especially because the pale trees are really thick, so I decided to add cherrywood trees into the mix. I think that pink and gray go really well together, so the colors complemented each other very well, and the different shapes gave them some much needed variety. The forest needed some bulking out to make it look more natural, so I did exactly that. I also carved out the general shape that I wanted to make it so that the change in soil would look natural too when I eventually change out the soil in the rest of the area. Then I went through the very annoying process of putting in all the new soil, which, as you might imagine, took a very long time. Now that the soil is all good, I started scattering a bunch of tree saplings everywhere to give the illusion that the forest is growing out on its own. I took bone meal to some of them, but not to all of them, to fill out the forest a bit more. I momentarily had the idea to add spruce trees into the mix for even more variety, but they were far too green to match the rest of what I created, so I scrapped that. Now that I have the entire forest filled out, I can get to decorating. I use the eye blossoms, which are flowers that close during the day but light up in the dark. I think the idea of glowing flowers in hell is the absolute best thing ever. That is absolutely something that I could imagine being in hell. Not just like in real hell, but like in Vivzi's hell also. Like, that seems on brand. I also added the pink flower ground cover that spawns in cherrywood forests to give the illusion that the cherry leaves have like fallen to the ground and are just collecting. I thought about adding in nether sprouts and nether vines, but they clashed too much with the color palette, so I didn't. The same reasoning applied to the red nether plants. They just didn't look good with the light gray and pink palette. You know what I did like though? Mangrove roots. I think they look like nasty little bushes. I'm imagining them as being bushes that look kind of like claws that sprouted out of the ground. I wanted this section of the map to look overgrown and untamed. It takes a lot of work to keep a garden in order, and as we all know, Charlotte went through a major depression era when Lilith disappeared and fired all her servants, so there was no one around to take care of her, her house, and especially her gardens. Gardens are a huge luxury in the Pride Ring. The Pride Ring is nothing but barren volcanic rock as far as the eye can see, and it takes an enormous amount of water in order to keep plants, especially trees, alive. Even one tree can cost as much as a supercar. And that water can't be just any water. It has to be clean water. Charlotte spent a ton of money on the soil that makes up this particular part of her land. The soil, which I have not yet named, acts as a water filter so that the acid rain that falls will be safe for the plants to drink. Acid rain is something that does actually occur here on Earth, and I think there's a misconception that it will burn your skin off. I mean, maybe not that much of a misconception, but like if you didn't know what kind of acid you're dealing with, like your immediate thought is going to be, oh, acid, that dissolves things. But most acids that occur in nature are perfectly harmless. Most acids that exist in nature, and frankly just most acids in general, are perfectly harmless, and this includes acid rain. If you go into an acid rainstorm, you're going to be just fine. It does eat away at buildings though, and it is not safe to drink. That's where the real harm of it comes from. It's the slow erosion and poisoning over time that makes acid rain such a bad thing. So if you have magic soil that filters the rain so that it's perfectly fresh, there are no issues. The reason why the soil color has changed from the usual reddish brown or black, I haven't decided which of those colors that soil would have been naturally. It's because the top layer is so full of toxins because it hasn't been changed in so long. And then it's going to stay that way because Charlotte doesn't have garden slaves anymore. I added in some wither flowers in there because the black flowers seem very on brand for hell also. Before Charlotte's depression era, I think she would have planted all kinds of flowers so that she could have had every color imaginable. But since the soil is so unlivable now, the only plants that are going to be able to survive are going to be trees because their roots are so deep, and the toughest of naturally occurring hell flowers, which includes the glowing ones I haven't named yet, and also the black ones that I haven't named yet. I wonder if it would be worth it to make a texture pack specifically for myself. I shouldn't do that. I really shouldn't do that, but it could also be really fun, but it also sounds like pain. I'm conflicted. I'll decide later. I probably won't, but like it could be cool, like if I could make a texture pack specifically for myself so that I could design I could make like a skin almost for these flowers specifically to change the way that they look. I would have to see if I can figure that out first. After that, I added a bunch of mushrooms. I love mushrooms. These particular breed of mushrooms, of which I have installed and created, will be a variety that feed off of the toxic chemicals in the soil, which helps the chemicals from seeping too deep into the soil where they would affect the tree roots. Mushrooms can reproduce both sexually and asexually, so they're really good survivors. They can have plenty of genetic variation between individuals, but they can also clone themselves to quickly infest an area. You have no idea how much I love mushrooms. You have no idea how much I love mushrooms. And someday you'll find out. But not yet. I have secrets. Something else that's a fungus but also a plant is lichen. And guess what we have here? glow lichen. I'm thinking this particular type of lichen will be a parasitic one that likes to grow on tree bark especially. This will also give the scene some nice soft lighting and also extra details. I also put some on the pathway to really give it that unkempt look. For what I thought were the finishing touches, I added in some shroom lights and 2 beehives. You already know what beehives are, but the shroom lights, at least in BBFFB, are going to be different than what they are in Minecraft. These are going to be a type of bioluminescent fungus that, like the lichen, will be parasitic in nature and also give us some nice natural lighting even when it's dark outside. So this is where I thought I was finally done, and it is where I ended stream, but I did come back a few days later and off stream added more. I found these gray moss carpets for the new update which pair with this gray moss block, and I decided to add those into the scene as well. I placed the carpets in a lot of different places. Where I had empty blocks though, I added in the moss blocks specifically. I didn't want to completely redo the flooring, especially since I had already decorated it, but also because I wanted a mix of things. I added it in as many places as I could without destroying my work. I also added in some fallen logs both on and off the path. Here's the final product, which I'm very, very happy with, and I think it turned out absolutely gorgeous. I will have to do the rest of the gardens in a different video. Maybe I might break it up piece by piece to really milk it for content. But man, this takes so much longer than you might imagine. Before you go, quick reminder, merch. These designs will only be around for exactly 1 more week when this video comes out, so now's your absolute chance to grab them. And once they're gone, unless you're a Patreon or Ko-fi member. These are for sale both on Ko-fi and Etsy. The Patreon shop is broken, and I don't know why or how to fix it. Buy them on Ko-fi if you can, the shipping is cheaper there. 75% of the profits will be stowed away to pay the voice actors of BBFFB on certain items, so you're not just supporting me, you're supporting my contractors too. Also, I take commissions. You can order those through Patreon, Discord, Ko-fi, or any other of my social medias. And speaking of patrons, a big thank you goes out to my financial supporters, JRDS, Immortal Jesse, Anna J, Jabdab, Mercer Scott Holt, Stephen Drake, J Draws, Silent Savvy, and Honey. Thank you all so much for watching. You're the greatest, and join me again next week in a super cool pool party. Bye-bye!